Thank you so much for coming this evening to keep this holy feast day, not only in your minds and your hearts, but to come to church together and in the communion of the faithful for us to share in this celebration of the solemnity of St. Mary. I think this is one of the most intimate gospel passages that we have, because to me, after reading this so many years, it seems to me that the angel is almost reading, or certainly is reading, Mary's mind. I guess angels can do that. Who says they can't? Because he tells her something that has to be stunning, almost seemingly impossible. And he says, well, Elizabeth, she's probably thinking, my relative? Your relative? What about her? Well, she's conceived. What? A son? That's impossible. She's too old. In her old age, it can't last. This is the 6th month for her. And she was called barren. And you have to say that, how can that happen? He says, nothing will be impossible for God. And then she says, behold the handmaiden of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word. And with that wonderful gesture of faith, she probably said something like, if Elizabeth can get pregnant, so can I. And at least if this is what the angel says, then what the angel says, if that's true concerning her, then it also must be true concerning me. And so then you have that other wonderfully intimate, visitation to where Mary and Elizabeth meet each other, both pregnant, full of expectation and hope. And who am I that the mother of my Lord should come to me? The first moment, I heard your greeting, the baby in my womb, who's John the Baptist, leapt in my womb. An idea so close with salvation at hand. So this is really the feast day that really begins it all, to tell you the truth. This is kind of like the beginning of salvation history. Now, I know it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. That's why we have Adam and Eve. We have that reading about, just as in Adam all die, so in Christ are all made alive, and all are made alive because of Mary's son. And so, because sin entered the world, in an offense that was against God, only God, could remove the offense. And so, God became one of us in order to show us that nothing is impossible for God. And if we ever want to know how close God is to us, you just look at each other. Mary saw the face of a relative, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was part of God's plan. Elizabeth saw Mary and knew she was part of God's plan. And even though you and I will not be called to such lofty heights as being, the sinless mother of God, even with our sinfulness, we are called to be part of the consolation and salvation of the human race. So, we do it in different ways. You'll find the way that is right for you. Maybe you've already found it. But you might be surprised what a good job you're doing. You probably may not think of yourself as doing God's work, but I assure you, you are. You can't possibly be part of this world and this life and not be engaged in God's work. Now, maybe you could be doing a better job, but you surely are part of it. Surely are part of it. And if you say, well, how can that be? Nothing's impossible with God. Nothing's impossible with God. By the way, I like the fact that it begins with, God looking for Adam. Adam, where are you? As if God doesn't know, right? If God knows everything, he knows where Adam is. He also knows what's happened, And Adam says, I'm hiding from you. Why are you hiding? Because I'm naked. Who told you you were naked? And of course, there's the loss of innocence right there. Suddenly things are seen as being bad instead of illustrative of God's design, God's plan. I don't know how many popes would be putting fig leaves on the naked statues that they had in the Vatican, and then other ones would take them off, and other ones would come in and put them on. But God saw fit to make people in their birthday suit, so to speak, And when Adam is troubled by that, God knows that something's been turned upside down. Because I made you beautiful. I made you in my image and likeness. And I made woman to be your companion and helper. So I like the fact that the first thing that happens is when he says, who told you were naked? And then Adam tries to shift blame. It was Eve. And then and he's trying to blame God. That woman that you put here, she gave me an apple to eat. And so what happens is Adam is pointing the finger at Eve. Eve is pointing the finger at the serpent, and the serpent has no fingers to point at anybody. So he gets blamed for everything. The reality, though, is we always have the opportunity to reflect on what our choices are in life. Adam made a bad choice, and so did Eve. But the other reality is God did not hold it against us eternally. And so, just as there are people who are part of God's plan, if you have perhaps failed in some ways, don't give up. That's the whole reason why God came. That's the whole reason why he was born, so that we would never have to suffer death, eternal death. And so this is the beginning of God putting the tape back on his plan, putting the Scotch tape on it and getting everything ready again for a good start over. And that is one thing that we really celebrate at Christmas, that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son. So, ahead of Christmas, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. And God bless you in all the ways that you need. And may he also help let you know that nothing's impossible for God. And that may perhaps mean you may struggle to think God can't forgive me, but yes, he can, and he did, and he does.